After weeks of seclusion, I emerged from the woodworks with my first ever commission. A month back, the folks over at Unfiltered the Epilogue asked me to animate over top an audio clip of theirs from an upcoming episode, and let me take it from there. Before ye now heralds the 63 hours I dedicated to bringing their words to life, including my follies, fancies, and all the wonderful technical stuff in between. Oh, and speaking of technical quirks, you may notice that my timer buds a little buddy at the 24-hour mark. Turns out Movavi's timer caps at a day, so I just have a little friend to keep the time accurate. Kind of like a mushroom. Just fun guy or cool guys. Anywho, enjoy the show! Since I myself am not familiar with the show, I wanted to make character boards so that way I could reference what each of the two characters looked like in different poses and expressions. See, even though I'm not experienced enough of an artist to draw someone else's characters freehand, at least not yet, it still helps me to get a sense of the show's style. Things like King of the Hill highlighting its character's nostrils, for example, which is a surprisingly uncommon choice in animation, but that helps me anticipate what my tweens will entail later on down the road. And some other tidbits that I picked up include Dale's sharp, yet sincere facial expressions, and understanding the many layers of Peggy's hair. Once I'm comfortable with all that, I script out the audio that I was given and find some keywords to use as anchors for the storyboard that I'm about to work on, which will of course eventually be sent to the client for review. Now here I really tried to stick to the advice and make this a simple first pass, but that doesn't mean that I can't pick up on some hefty looking reference images to make sure that my thoughts for each scene are clearly conveyed. Now, a basic-ass storyboard is kind of boring for a client, so I learned to toss all the images into a timeline, sync it up to the audio that I was given, and this creates a super rough animation of what the final product is leaning to look like. For the cool kids out there, this is called an animatic. And once it was confirmed, nailed it, I get to jump in and start skeletonizing my animation. So, first up here is, again, the roughest possible of passes to establish the key poses that each character will take, giving careful thought to the spacing of each body in each shot, and working my way through all of the major motions that each character takes, frame by frame, scene by scene. I mean, I might as well do that now while everything is still simple. Now, some of you may recognize me using one of the first pass styles from an earlier exercise, and in that case, thank you for watching. What's new here is that I'm used to doing the in-betweening as early as this stage, but no, say the pros. I'm supposed to save my tweening for the pass right before the cleanup. They say it saves time and carpal tunnel, so for now, I'm just going to focus on making key poses that bring out some personality in all of the characters. I do, however, take the time to manually animate all of my slide transitions because since everything is so simple, I can get a feel for whether or not I even want to keep those at all. With the bare bones out of the way, again, sent to the client for a green light, I began the real challenge, drawing the actual characters. Now, like I said before, I realized real early on that I was not going to be able to draw Peggy and Dale freehand, so I mulled it over, and I decided that the priority here is really recognizability, and the best way to get that would be to trace. Now, I'm a heretic, I know, but hear me out. It was wonderfully effective. I mean, especially when the turnarounds for each of the characters are made readily available by the show's artists on Twitter. So with those tools, and a little bit of help from Google to supplement the more unique poses, I was able to craft each of my poses without sacrificing recognizability, even at the oddest of angles. Now, of course, my reference board work still came in handy, since I had to use my own skills and imagination to connect all of these pieces, even if the shapes and the proportions were already a given to me. Plus, even though I traced and spliced together the poses, that's not animation. Case in point, you just saw me referencing Skullgirls to see how to time out an idle animation, which I had to translate on my own to my poses to actually bring them to life. I guess my point here is, authenticity to the source material was just more important to my client than my proving how skillful of an artist I am. Priorities.
Of course, that's not to say that I didn't go out of my way to strut my stuff a little bit.
See, there's no shortcuts to good hands, or arms for that matter, so each and every hand and arm in every frame was posed by me in the mirror. Now, this was definitely a lot more prevalent when making Dale's frames. Peggy's poses consisted, for the most part, of 3 6-frame idle animations, still at the beginning, and the unique motion of being hit by a can. Not too many hands and all that, relatively speaking, but there definitely were challenges in the slight perspective changes in her idling animations. Dale, on the other hand, is all over the place, so I made sure to pose not only for the stills that you see for a long time, but also each of the individual tweens that just go by in a flash. It felt authentic to me to put as much care into each of those frames as I could, and I'll admit it's not very noticeable at a glance, but I am proud of myself for pulling it off. Now, speaking of tweens, it's still kind of a silly word to say, but it makes me giggle, so I'm going to keep using it. Speaking of tweens, Dale also got all the love with this section too, which, as a side note, I totally think is the most therapeutic part of animating. See, since I'm just doing even halves, I get to turn my brain off and just cruise control through the whole tweening process. I'm discovering new bands, hanging out with folk on Discord. It's kind of like, for me, a mid-animation reward for getting all the hard thinking out of the way back in the key pose stage. Also, back on topic, now that I'm spending more time finalizing the execution of my flairier choices, here I get to reference that classic anime shing for when the narrator mentions that keyword, and around here I get to fine-tune how Deo's spirituality retrieves the can after tossing it in the earlier well-rounded gag. These little personality and consistency bits really help bring the piece to life to ensure that the story flows properly. Oh, and before I lose it again, I'd like to highlight the idle animation that I'm working on right here. So by breaking down other animated works, I learned the timing for shoulders, hands, and the body to make the loop feel a bit more dynamic and alive. For those interested, my pattern is the body moves up, hands catch up, hands and body move down together, repeat on the other side, and loop. And that's how you get that nice bounce. Once all the unique frames are drawn, I make a library in Toon Boom and transfer the new frames over to my animatic file, then drop the drawings into new layers over top of their respective rough past skeletons. After all, why bother remaking the timing when I already have it right here? Now, yes, I need to recut and paste the frames that are a part of the slide transitions that I'm hand animating, but now all that I have to do is follow the guide that I've made for myself. Streamlines the whole process. And once all the new frames are in their happy place, I can finally get into work on what I call the accessories. Now, my exercises have taught me to see the bodies in motion before animating, for example, the can that Dale throws, or Peggy's glasses falling. This way I know how fast and in what direction to have these accessories move in. Finally, at the end of the line, we have what I would call my one true mistake of this whole process, or I suppose learning opportunity if you're one of the more positive thinking types. See, I thought that the cleanup, or the inking stage, would be a swift process. After all, I'm just tracing frames that I've already drawn. No need to stop and think, just breeze through, right? I was so wrong. It took me almost a week just to clean up almost 100 unique frames between the two characters and all of their accessories, when I thought that I could pull it off in a day. Huge sobering moment right there. And my appreciation goes out to my client who allowed me the extra time to finalize this step and make it look the best that I could. Now, past the lesson on scheduling, the actual techniques here are pretty straightforward. Take a brush of the same size as my pencil and work to cover all of my lines in one fell stroke. Control-Zing is necessary, but to make it one clean line every time. The nice thing is that, much like the earlier stage, I only had to clean up the unique frames, and then I could copy and paste them around as necessary once I'm done. See, this worked doubly so for coloring, so I thought ahead and made sure to color the frames before cutting and pasting them around. That way I could save a little time and not have to, for example, paint in every frame in each of the slide transitions. Not gonna lie, it kinda makes me feel good when I get to actually apply some of the lessons from all of those months of exercises. And the last little challenge was the anime transition, which I modeled after the superimposed slice cutaway that you find in some of the more classic shonens. Originally, I was actually going to have his face fade in after the red had already encompassed the whole screen, but since it's so quick, I decided that the gradual face reveal as the slash comes down felt a lot more dynamic, and I'm happy with the result. And with that, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this little behind the scenes of my first ever commission. I hope to have a chance to bring to life the works of others in the future. Until then, have a wonderful however long.